Howdy, partners. It's been a
All right.
while since we've seen each other.
So we're all rolling.
I'm rolling on my end.
All
It's
right.
a
Cool.
Zoom deal.
You want to lead in? You want me to lead in?
You go ahead and lead in.
Sure.
People love you better.
What's up, everybody? It's Mike and Eddie for the Fake Philosophers back. On a rare occasion, we decided to have a conversation.
In a
Eddie, how you been?
hiatus. I've been good. Yourself?
Not too bad. Just busy.
Yeah, and what brings us today is just there's a bunch of protests going on.
There's a
They
lot.
don't look
There's a
like they're
lot
going
of
any.
yeah. There's a lot of shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured I have some opinions. You have some opinions, and that's like let's share them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my
All right.
opinion
So
was I was just kind of outraged by just kind of the pervasive narcissism that it's like, okay, I'm going to go in with my own beliefs. I'm not going to take any external points of view. I'm going to restrict everybody's access on campus. And of course, what we are talking about is Palestinian protesters, pro-Palestine students it began at the University of Columbia, and then as of last night, it was at UCLA. And yeah, I stayed up to watch that whole thing. Didn't want to miss a minute. It was very interesting, and my actually hats off to LAPD, CHP, all the combined law enforcement efforts, because they got stuck in like a little narrow path. They had a bunch of personnel lined up and they're ready to go. It's like, oh, okay, how are you going to do this? And the newscaster even said, you don't give them time to plan, they're going to do stuff. And so they just kind of went around. I was like, how can you not use pepper spray? You got to use pepper spray. Oh, and preceding this, they actually made it into the area and then the students rushed them. And then they had to get themselves out. So there was like a retreat at first. I was like, oh, here comes the pepper spray. We're going to get silly at this point. But the reason why I applaud law enforcement is because I didn't see any pepper spray on their part used. I mean, it was all tactics.
mhm.
They put a plywood up. Okay, let's get the plywood out of the way. And they were even talking. They were sitting there having conversations. And then the next thing you know, there's students with their hands up, thinking, okay, yeah, it's a good idea not to get arrested.
Yeah,
So,
maybe not push this. Yeah.
yeah, so a good call on their part. It only took, a bunch of police officers showing up with the threat of getting arrested to let them know. But yeah, it's I was very like one-sided, but then hearing all arguments, I see good and bad aspects of this. But
Mhm.
it's mostly grim, actually. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like I'm very much someone who thinks like, yeah, like pro protest is an American right, it's an American tradition, all about it, right? But that being said, when it becomes disruptive, that's too much. And that's like it's a big talking point right now, the freedom of speech, and the freedom of speech is not absolute.
Mhm.
Um, Unfortunately, a lot of Americans think it is, but it's not. In this situation, cool. You want to protest? I support any protest you want. If you want to protest that people make fun of you for fucking your own shoe, you want to go out and protest that? I think it's weird, but protest it. But as soon as you start blocking traffic or classes canceled or graduations canceled, now you're not protesting. You're disrupting other people's lives,
Mhm.
and that's where you draw the line. And even like I think Biden last night or this morning even came out with a statement saying, "I support your right to protest, but I also support the rule of law." And they're breaking the law. Um, and so I kind of it's a weird comparison. I've always compared it, but I kind of think about when I used to take my dog to breweries or like outdoor restaurants, or even other people who've done it. I'm all about it. Take your dog out. But as soon as that dog starts barking or starts shedding, like my dog was shedding a fucking ton. As soon as that dog becomes a problem, then that dog does not belong there anymore.
Mhm.
And that's kind of it's a weird comparison, but that's kind of how I look at these protests. Like, we don't have to get into, at least not right away, our thoughts on the actual situation in Israel and Palestine. But like, you can even agree with the protests, like what they're protesting, but say that's not okay though, because
I
like
think
they're
everybody agrees with that.
yeah.
Uh, well, it goes without saying, but just to have the narcissism and audacity and to be tone deaf to the extent where you're asking for, you're paying 60 grand a year to go to Colombia and you're asking for humanitarian aid. What? And along with that disappointment, there were other disappointments. I wish it would have been more woke, because there are people who aren't Palestinian wearing Palestinian clothes. Excuse me, where's the cultural appropriation? Are you Palestinian? Don't wear that. No. And the exclusion. There's the video of somebody who's Jewish, who's a student there, but he can't walk down a certain path because he's not in the little liberated club, shall we say, because you got to know somebody to get in. We got the club thing going on. So it's not inclusive, and they're violating the cultural appropriation. I guess that's just a millennial thing. Yeah, throw that out. That is so yesterday.
I guess you compare it to when Pelosi and all them put on the African scarf, I always forget what it's called, and took a knee inside the Capitol. It's like, oh, so you're just wearing black shit to try to connect with them.
Yeah,
all right,
you're from Ghana now. That's good to know. Awesome. That helps. What? Because you have people from Ghana, and it's like, what the hell is this? Where was that a while ago? And with regards to these protests, it's fascinating. Where were they 7 months ago, and why this? You have human rights violations going on across the Arab world, Afghanistan, Syria. Let's go ethnic Uyghurs in China. Holy crap! Well, there's forced abortion and mandatory re-education, ergo prison. Why this? And then the audacity to go into a university that picked you up, that said, okay, yeah, come over and be a student, and then saying, well, you needed to divest from Israel. Well, that wasn't a problem when we accepted you. That's like getting a job at McDonald's and saying, you know what, I don't think you guys do beef. I'm going to sit right here until you stop selling beef. It's like, that's ridiculous audacity. I mean, that's your due diligence that you failed on. It's not up to the university. Now there are universities that are up and, divesting from Israel. So go there. It's
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that shit. And I think, so again, I'm okay with people protesting, but when you cross that line, I'm like, no. And part of the problem, I think, so I remember this was even before George Floyd, but when Black Lives Matter first started getting going, I was like, all right, cool, whatever. And a guy, I wouldn't call him a friend because I don't really know him that well. I worked on a few sets with him. He filmed a live video. He was in one of these crowds that walked out on the 101 and blocked traffic. And I was kind of like, I didn't know he was like that, but all right. And then I was looking at some of the comments that people were commenting on it, and the way he explained it, and I want to preface this with saying that I don't agree with this, but what he explained was, it's inconvenient to be a Black person in America. So we're going to be an inconvenience to everyone else so they understand what inconvenience is. And I remember reading that.
Yeah, they're co-opting that. Oh, I suddenly know what it means to be Black because I can't pick my kids up.
Right.
That's it.
And I almost wanted to comment, dude, if you think people stuck in traffic after 8 or more hours of work, if you think they're stuck in traffic and they go, oh, this is what it's like to be Black, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah, agreed.
And so I kind of apply that here. I'm not really sure the motivation of being violent and disruptive. I'm not really sure what their goal was, but if that was a similar goal to see Palestine's being devastated, so we're going to cause no one's going to fucking think that. No one's going to draw that conclusion from this. All they're going to think is you're an asshole.
Yes.
And that's it. I can be, appreciate the sentiment, but your follow through is just fucked up. And not to mention, fine, ruin your college experience, ruin your own. But you have other people who just want to get an education and want to graduate. And now people are canceling graduations. It's fucking selfish. Like you said, it's ego and protest, but don't be a fucking asshole. That's it's mind-boggling, but
again, it's narcissistic, and they're not at home doing it alone. If somebody sticks their head in an alligator's mouth, you better damn well there's going to be paying customers and a camera. They're they're not only on TikTok. And that's how that whole UCLA thing got started. It was fascinating because the media was commenting on that because they were just trolling each other. And then it was fascinating to see, on one hand, you had protesters who didn't want the police, who are anti-police. Only a certain, type of thought gets into our compound, that we've commandeered campus, that we've commandeered a public space, or if you're in Columbia, a private space. And then it was, I didn't agree with the violence, regardless of what, you shouldn't be doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't good for the Jewish cause, But then it was also interesting to see, it's like, okay, you like wearing masks, huh? You don't like the police. Okay, so what you doing? And did anybody's mind get changed? No, it was just people beating on each other. That's it. Okay, you got the testosterone out.
And that's
really, nobody's mind was changed.
you just that whose mind did you change?
Mhm.
What good did this do? Even in Biden's statement, like I said, it was last night or this morning, I forgot what it was. He gave this whole thing like, I completely understand. I support protests, but rule of law is also important. Blah 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 blah. And a reporter asked, "Have these protests made you think about changing your policy at all?" And he just said, "No." Like, no. Look at love or hate Biden. He just said no and walked off the stage.
Okay.
Like
that's every other American too. That's every. Not a damn mind was changed, and that's why I was like, okay, should we record this tonight? Because it's we're not going to change him into his mind, but we have a right to vent. What changed my mind, and what talked me down off the ledge of being just angry and just existing within that, is Piers Morgan interviewed a Egyptian comedian, and they had diametrically opposed views, and then they had a follow-up interview, and that was really interesting. And I watched that, and I was like, this is a calm discussion. This is what I need to be, because we can make fun, we can talk politics and the way things should be, but if there's no discussion, then that's not college. And that's why I say this is so grim, because two aspects: you're not letting other people, you got to know somebody. So you have to, in order to grow into a public space, in order to go into a liberated part,
right.
We only let a certain amount of people liberated into this here campus. Oh, Jesus, that is just funny now that I say that.
The gatekeeping, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you're liberated, but only like people who think like you. There's that one thing. And the other thing that was really grim to me, and yeah, I did see it on Fox. I get everybody's point of view on this, including Al Jazeera. They were interviewing somebody who was waiting outside the Columbia gates, waiting for a friend, and reporter started interviewing just this bystander, and she was pro-Palestine and what have you, and then so she's all like, well, do you agree with what happened on October 7th? And it was kind of straight down the line. No, I'm against killing children and what have you. Who's not?
Right.
But then again, they're like, okay, so you agree? How do you feel about them taking a janitor hostage? He wanted to leave, but they couldn't go. And then her comment was, "Oh, that's a false narrative. It's got to be a false narrative." Even though the dude said, "Yeah, they didn't let me." You just call it a lie. So this is like 1984 shit going on right here, and that's what's grim about this. That's what's grim, because it's freedom of speech that you approve of. And that's not freedom of speech. And I had to take a stand back, because this is the best thing of all. And this is the silver lining. All these protests is what makes America great. Because in the 70s, the Ayatollah Khomeini, when he took power in Iran, called America the Great Satan. Imagine if you were alive to see this. It's like, this is your cause, well, does Iran really care about the Palestinians? Are they, kind of a pawn to the Arabic world too? That's another discussion.
Sure.
But you've got people advocating for an Arabic cause, and yet we're the Great Satan. It's like, I don't know about that, And it's so funny. That's what makes America amazing. Because if you go out and I don't know, you probably get away with it in Palestine, but be outspoken like this, be this disruptive in other Arabic countries, it's not going to go well.
Yeah.
If this happened on a campus, In the Arabic world, it would not go as well. There would not be the tolerance, ironically, there would not be the tolerance that was exhibited here in the United States. And
Sure.
thank God, you know. So as much as I was annoyed, it's like, well, I really had to say it. And I remember my grandfather saying this: I disagree with what you say, but I defend your right to say it.
Yeah. The
And
age old quote.
I crossed my own line doing that. Now, on the other side, Alan Dershowitz, this was fascinating. And if we could have some semblance of the critical thinking come from the pro-Palestine movement, this would be absolutely exceptional. What Alan Dershowitz did when he had only written 3 books on why Israel's right to exist, why it's a legitimate state, and what have you. And I believe it was at UCLA too. He got into a debate with a colleague of his, and he was going to take the negative position that Israel should not exist. It does not have a right to exist. And he prefaced it by saying, why am I doing this despite writing 3 books? Well, because there needs to be an opposing discourse of some sort, because nobody challenged Hitler. So if it has to be me being the dissenting voice, we have to have this. We all can't agree, And if somebody from the Palestinian movement gets up and starts saying that and has legitimate discourse on that, that would be amazing,
Sure.
Why don't we hear that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people unfortunately get wrapped up in the romance of protesting without actually understanding why they're protesting.
That's all this was. It's
Yeah,
all romance.
I heard. I take credit for it when I say it, but I heard someone else say it first years ago. Try not to be so desperate to fight for something that you fight for anything. And I feel like some of that applies here, because don't get me wrong, I don't like all the talk shows do it. That Fox does it, CNN, all the comics do it. The interview that man on the street interviews. They interview people and they always pick out and cherry pick the dumb people, and they make it look like those people represent the larger demographic. It's funny. Yeah, it's entertaining. It's funny. But so with that in mind, I did see some multiple clips of them interviewing some of these kids protesting. And sure enough, granted, they might not represent the whole, but they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Exactly.
Or what they're fighting about. I think granted, when I was in college, I never was someone to like do more work than I had to. So if they're like, we're going to go protest, I'd be like, so we had the day off? So I don't have to go to class today?
Classes are canceled. Sure.
Oh, I'm going home. So I've never been that person to like go and protest shit. But if I was, I'd at least be curious about what I'm protesting, and have a basic understanding of it. Because like I said, and we could discuss if you want, I actually agree with why they were protesting, but that's not the way to do it. Even look at, you can have your opinions about Black Lives Matter, but I saw a couple rallies of theirs where it was an organized event. They had like a stage set up, permitted stage set up, cameras were there, they gave speeches, they showed their point of view, they kind of marched around a little bit and called it a day. And I felt like that was, again, agree or disagree with them, a productive one, because they're getting a discussion there. There's a discussion. They're getting a point across. They're expressing what they're believing. By going to a campus and disrupting classes and shutting down graduations and shutting down campuses, everything that you possibly could have done, even if it was good, is going to be overshadowed by all that bullshit.
Yep, it already has been.
Exactly.
Now you're just a nuisance. Yeah. Regardless of what you're talking about. If you're an a-hole, then that's going to carry over. Not your movement. You're not doing the movement. You're being a useful idiot is what you're being. You're getting the word out, but you're not getting people on your side. And it's like, okay, you want me to divest? Well, I think if I was on the fence about it, here's what I know. You're blocking traffic. You're preventing me from getting an education if I'm a student for no good reason other than your cause. So regardless of what you're saying, your message is lost. And you really brought something to mind, because keep in mind, a lot of these kids didn't graduate. A lot of these college students didn't graduate. And there must be some sort of adrenaline. I thought about this too. just there was it's very kumbaya. And listening to the protest, free Palestine, and it's like a cadence, it's repeated and stuff like that with a drum beat. It's like very hypnotic. You get that camaraderie, especially when you're doing something you're not supposed to do, you know? So it's like Coachella after hours, and then the police might get involved. And so there's that hypnosis, but or just that communal, there's being a part of the mob. Let's call it what it is.
It's gang mentality.
Let's look at the larger group and let's look at the smaller group. You're a part of the mob. You've got the mob mentality. Shouldn't we go against it? What about should have known-ism? That wasn't practice. Shouldn't you know not to follow the mob? Like people should have known back when there was segregation. That's you. You're following the mob. Yeah. Amazing.
And that's I think part of it too. Granted, we don't have to get into it, but like even when you look at some of these people who are arrested for the whole January 6th riot, a majority of them had no intention when they went to that rally of storming the Capitol. But they got caught up in the march, they got caught up in the moment, that mob mentality you're talking about, and all of a sudden they're going in with these militant people, breaking windows and shit, getting arrested, and they're like, wait, what the fuck? What happened? Why did I do like?
But I'm on the good side, yeah.
Or even like I saw an interview with one that he said, he's like, I forgot what exactly he said, but it was something along the lines of, I had no intention that day of doing any of that. And then when he's like, when I got arrested, I was just like, wait, what the fuck? Why did I do this? Like what was I thinking? And I think that goes back to what you're saying about this whole thing. I'm sure a lot of those kids, like, you know, you said, which went there to protest a decent, you know, they're to protest it and put out their beliefs, got swept up in this chaos, and now they got fucking arrested.
Well, only 132 people from
130,
that whole crowd. Only 132 people were dumb enough to get arrested. You could have ran away. The cops would have let you because that's less paperwork, you know? Showed overwhelming force. So that tells me the bulk of students that were there got caught up in it and were smart enough to leave. You know? There were people at Columbia that weren't busted into buildings.
Yeah, but it's kind of like I maybe have told this anecdote before on a previous episode back when we were doing this regularly. But there was in high school, I remember I was at a party, and you know we're all 17, 18 years old, drinking and stuff, and a cop showed up naturally as they do, and this cop was an asshole to me like at a different party earlier in the night. But at this party, he walks in. There's like 3 or 4 of them, and he kind of looks around and he's like, "Hey, everybody, like line up against the wall." And we're like, shit, you know? And this will come back around, trust me. And he's like, I'm looking around. I see a keg, I see bottles of beer, and I see liquor. That means that you have to be 21 to consume this. Does everyone understand? And everyone's kind of like, yeah, whatever. And he's like, so if you're 21, you're free to go. I'm not checking IDs. And so everyone was kind of like, huh? Like, kind of like, what do we do? And he's like, as I said, if you're over 21, you're free to go. I'm not checking IDs. And then everyone got the hint. And they're like, all right. And everyone just fucking left.
Smart people.
And so to your point, I can't imagine if someone's like, sir, but I'm not 21.
Well, if they were dumb,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
At the party.
That's what I mean. So that you got this situation where the police are showing up to campus to clear it out. And pretty much all you had to do is comply and leave.
Yeah.
To my understanding.
Go back to studying what you went to school for. And if you're really pro Palestine, well, you do something else. You write a blog. You maybe go visit Palestine.
Start a podcast. Start a GoFundMe.
And bring pictures of you. See, look what I did. You know, I'm not just a virtue signal. I'm part of your movement. Who wants some food? Who needs medical attention? You know?
Sure.
There can be boots on the ground. There can be not virtue signaling, but actual duty that can take place. If you really mean it, there are people over there that need help.
Yeah,
so why are you over there? That's like, it's like stopping traffic because you're worried about climate change, which is a lot easier than getting a degree in environmental science or getting a degree in engineering and learning about more efficient ways to solve the problem. But right now you're being an idiot by preventing me from picking up my kids, going to work, or taking my grandfather to the hospital. You're not solving the problem.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting because 5 years down the road, How many kids were solved because you spent 6 days in the quad? What was it? Do we have a number? Who won? Who lost? How about was Israel any closer? Did a university get built in Palestine? Because I remember somebody from Columbia, spokesman, saying there are no universities in Palestine. And I was like, that's a great point. There are rockets, there are tunnels underneath hospitals that Germans and Americans paid for. There's that. There's AK-47s. There's indoctrinations. Plenty of mosques. But what about these universities? So six, one half dozen or the other there. It's like
Yeah.
the answer is in that question. The answer is in that question.
Yeah. And I mean, is the one in Colombia still happening?
It got cleared out.
Gotcha.
And
I
I
know you
think
said
people are
cleared out.
just protesting outside, or they've moved the police station where they're holding like where they take them to get arrested or something like that. It's wacky. It's not going away. You get the adrenaline going. And oh God, and just thinking about this, okay, that just going back to that Columbia student who wanted humanitarian aids, we're in inflation, people are losing their jobs, food is sky high, and you want people to airdrop shit onto you. And you're going $60,000 in debt, or you get a scholarship or something.
Well,
It's
let me ask a question because I missed that. So people at the protest were asking for aid?
A spokesman, because not everybody can talk to the camera. They don't talk to the press.
Smart.
And you're not legally obliged to do that.
Yeah.
For once, you can be quiet. I like that. Okay, so here's what you do. You just send a bunch of newscasters in there and hold up microphones, and then nobody will say anything. Well, actually, they might yell at you and chant. But yeah, somebody said, I got the clip. Well, she's going to go viral. That's going to haunt her for the rest of her life. A privileged, tone-deaf student involved in a protest, which
Escalated.
no value, escalated the situation, did not solve any problems, is asking for humanitarian aid.
That's kind of
okay,
fun.
okay, more power to her. We were both 21s. We make mistakes. We did some stupid things. We just didn't have a camera. And
So yeah.
we're in a protest. So there's going to be like some furrowed eyebrows and what have you. But okay, she's young. She had her 20 minutes of fame. Maybe she'll get elected to Congress or something like that, and she can,
Give it a
fight
few
out
years.
there. And I don't know. It's just amazing. And then
Yeah,
the actual and we can get into this. Let's get into this. We're talking. How come there's no discussion about what were to happen if? Okay, so this is about the kids, right?
Recording, stop. Stop recording. There we go.